Hello class, this is your Sibelius specific tutorial on completing the rhythm section notation assignment. You'll need your Gary Lindsay textbook, pages 14 through 16, and I wanted to start by pointing out a feature in Sibelius that was introduced a few versions ago, and it's a little bit controversial. There's a lot of people that really don't like this. It's called magnetic layout, and it's intended to help avoid collisions, as you can see there in the little description. It works great sometimes, and then sometimes you just wish it weren't on at all. So for the purposes of this assignment, I'm going to come up to my layout tab here, and I'm going to disable magnetic layout for now. And let's get started here. So let's begin by placing final bar lines at the end of each system, which is what Gary Lindsay has done in his textbook. So that's good practice for us. So I'm going to right click, and it could be a control click for Mac users. And I'm going to go to bar line, and I actually want a final bar line for each of the ends of these systems. You know, usually we would use a double bar line for something like this, but since we're dealing with these separate examples, it really is more like the end of a piece of music. So again, bar line, final, bar line, final. Okay, and the last one's done for you by default. Obviously, it's the last bar of the notation file. All right, so the other thing is Gary Lindsay points out that we're not going to be needing the bass clef. He says to omit the bass staff for the first three of these examples anyway. So I can go ahead really, and I can just click on this first measure in the bass clef, hold shift, click on that last measure of 3.3, and I can just say hide empty staves, okay, and then that's going to space things out a little bit differently. At this point, I can actually just bring this second system down a little bit, third system down. We'll get further detail, and there comes a point when you're doing that where these will just sort of snap into place. It has to do with some of the layout preferences in Sibelius, but that gives us enough room to work, okay? It gives us a lot of space. And if we wanted to, we could bring this top staff down a little bit, so maybe that looks a little bit neater for us. All right, let's go ahead and begin here. So we've got slash notation here. There's a really fast way of entering slashes, and it has to do with a plugin that is an optional installation for Sibelius. So if you wanted to install the plugin that allows you to do this, you would have to go to the File tab, and then down here below Help, there's this little plugin icon, and it would be from Install Plugins. So you don't have to do this. Let me show you how it works both ways. So the fast way, as I mentioned, is to use a plugin. Check this out. I'm going to select this first measure, select the last measure. We just need slashes here. There's no note heads. I'm going to go into the ribbon here, and I know the plugin starts with fill. It's fill selection with slash notes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the default values are perfect. What I watch for is beat or beat without stem. In this case, beat without stem is correct. And I click on OK, and boom, there it is. I get slashes. They don't play back, which is a good thing here. We don't want the slashes to play back. Let me undo this, and I'll show you the sort of older school approach to entering slash notation in Sibelius. So I'm going to select this whole rest here, and I'm just going to start breaking into quarter notes here, and then I'm just typing the letter B here. Now I've got my MIDI keyboard in front of me, but I'm going to use that later when I've got notes to enter as part of a voicing. So here we've just got a bunch of Bs, and why do we do that? Well, because if I select this first measure, hold shift, select that last measure, I can go to this tab called Notations. We've got this notehead type dialog, so I'm going to go ahead from this little downward arrow and bring up my notes, and in this case we want the beat without stem. Remember, we just talked about that in the plugin, so I'm going to click on that, and there we've got slashes. So it takes a little bit longer to do it that way. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And again, we've disabled our magnetic layout, so we can expect that we'll see some collisions here. I'm going to select this first slash. I just clicked on it, and then our shortcut for chord entry in order to place the cursor is on Mac Command K, K for chord, on PC Control K. So here I go, and I'm going to type in the letter name, capital D, small m, small I, just like you see in Lindsay's book, the number 7, and then the symbol that we use for a flat sign is just lowercase b, and the number 5. And to advance to the next beat, I hit spacebar, so I'm spacing over to the next measure. So here's that collision I was just talking about. So there's two things we could do here. We could simply move this text up. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Or we could enable magnetic layout. The only problem with that is it's put the chord on the wrong side. So I would then have to flip things like this. All right, so for now, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to leave magnetic layout disabled, and I'm just going to bring this text up like so. All right, so our next chord is a G13. Let me click on this slash and then Command K for me, Control K for PC people. Capital G13. It's a dominant chord with a 13th extension. Space, 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 space. Our next chord symbol in beat bar 3 is going to be C minor 7 flat 5. It's a half diminished chord, so Command K or Control K for chord. C small m small a 7. Lowercase b 5. And then we're going to space to this last measure here, so it's F. And then the symbol for sharp is number. So I'm holding shift, hitting 3, 7. Don't need the parentheses, but we can put them there. So parentheses, sharp 11, and then 2 spaces, and then F13, like so. All right, so that does our first example. Example 2, we can actually use some of the same items that we just had before. Not all, but some. So select this first measure, hold shift, select the last measure, Command C or Control C. I'm copying, selecting this first measure, and now I hit V, Command V or paste. There's actually another way of doing this. I could select these measures and just type the letter R, and it'll repeat all of that. Okay, so a few differences, right? We've got something different right here. We've got 2 eighth notes. So I could break this down into eighth notes right now. I'm going to get a weird occurrence, though. I'm going to hit 3 on the keypad, and you'll see there that I don't have the note head that I need. But I've got an eighth note there. So if I hit R, I now have another eighth note there. It looks like a bar of 5/4, doesn't it? And then I can tie from there also. So what I need to do is I need to switch these 2 note heads to rhythmic note heads, okay? So these are called slash note heads, and these are called rhythmic note heads. So I need rhythmic note heads. So again, I go up to my notations tab, and then there's this dialog type, and then what I want now is beat with stem. Okay, so beat with stem corresponds to the rhythmic note heads. That's what we want. This measure here is a little bit different. We start this measure now with an 8th rest, and I need to hit 0 on the keypad to confirm that I really want to rest there. And then here, I'm just going to type B like I did before. And again, it's just a matter of selecting this beat with stem. Okay, you'll notice though that because the cursor is to the right of this note, that it didn't do anything. So I'm going to go ahead, hit escape, select that note again, and then type. And now we've got our rhythmic notation there. Okay, so these we don't want. So these slashes I'm just going to turn into rests by using arrow key 0. And here we've got this 8th rest again that we need there, right? Converting that into a rest, and then we've got B. This gets tied into a dotted quarter note. And at this point, you'll notice that I'm sort of, doing away with the slash notation. So we've got another B that gets tied into this B. I'm going to make a large selection here. I can include the 8th rest. It doesn't even matter. I'm going to hold shift and select to the end of the measure there. Now I can go up to our types up here and select beat with stem and sort of take care of everything in one blow. So that's example 3.2. All right, example 3.3, I'm going to show you a little bit of a different approach on this. I'm not going to do the copying and pasting that I did a moment ago because, as you can see, I've got my MIDI keyboard here for a reason. That is because beat 4, I've got an A flat and a G at the end of this measure. So let me go ahead and select this whole rest, and I'm going to start entering my quarter notes. I could do it here, I could do it up here. So let me do it up here since I've got it. Those are quarter notes, they're going to get turned into slashes. Now I need pitches, which have actual real note heads. So I'm going to select the rhythmic value, which is 8th note, 3 on my keypad. Then I've got my A flat that I'm going to enter up here. This saves me the step of having to enter a flat symbol in from the keypad. That's part of why I've got my MIDI keyboard here. and it's going to come in really handy in example 3.4. So I've got that G sharp. I need to spell that enharmonically as an A flat, so that's just the return key here for me. And then I've got a G. That needs to be tied into a half note G, so we've got our tie, enter on the keypad, selecting the half note value, and just hitting my G there. And now we're back to entering quarter notes, which will turn to slashes, like so. We've got an eighth rest in this next measure, followed by a D, eighth note. Okay, then using my right arrow key, advancing, breaking down into a quarter rest, eighth rest. Then we've got a C eighth note. Adjusting my octave, tied to a C dotted quarter note. That's the advantage, again, of a bigger keyboard. I'm having to switch octaves here. C and then an F. All right, just like so. Okay, so let's take care of slashes and rhythmic notation first. Here we go. So I could select these three notes, come up to type here, and again, I'm in the notations tab, and use beat without stem. Well, you probably notice there's shortcuts for a lot of these things too. Let's use them. So selecting these two notes which need to be slashes, using the shortcut, which is Shift Alt Option 3. It's a lot faster. Okay, then we've got these top note voicings again. Now I forget, did we leave magnetic layout off? Yeah, we did. So this will be easier for us, because if magnetic layout is turned on, then another problem that we're going to deal with is that the symbol that we're going to use will move or shift. I'm going to zoom in here. That's Command plus for me, Control plus PC users. Okay, there's also a scroll bar in the lower right hand corner. You can't see it right now. I'm going to pull up my symbols because I need to account for these top note voicings, or voice below lead chords. So I'm going to type the letter Z, and then I'm going to scroll down to vertical line. Make sure you use that one, not the one left of it, because the vertical line is going to be longer for us. So I'm going to click there, locked and loaded. I'm just going to put that where it needs to go. I can use my arrow keys to nudge it around a little bit. That looks like the book. Great. So Z. Now notice that since I just used that vertical line, it now appears in the most commonly used symbols, which makes it a lot easier for me to hunt down. Okay, and you might even build or incorporate some copy and paste into your workflow for this, which might make it even faster for you to do that, but that's how I create the top note voicings. All right, we've got a little bit more top note voicings toward the end here. So Z, vertical line, like so, Z, vertical line, like so. Okay, and then, whoop, missed one. Okay, chord symbols. And speaking of chord symbols, the book has an error. Here's the error. This G13 in the previous example needs to line up over that. This C half diminished needs to be placed over its attendant rhythmic notation, and this F sharp 7 sharp 11 needs to be placed over that note, and this harmonic anticipation over that. All right, moving onward here, we can copy and paste actually most of this. I'm going to show you something that's kind of neat. If you hold Command or Control, you can lasso all the elements here. So I'm just kind of drawing a thin line over those chords, lassoing them. And then if I hold Command or Control C, I'm copying to my clipboard, select this first slash, and Command V or Control V will paste all those accordingly. All right. So that does that example. Moving onward. Our fully notated version. Now this one is the one where we actually have a bass clef. You know, this is common if you had a piano left hand doubling the bass. Okay, the acoustic bass, for example. It would be really common for you to need to have the bass clef. So let's do this. It's really common when you are switching from one type of staff to another type of staff, but for the same player. It's really common to use what we call score system dividers. So I'm going to pull up my symbols one more time. And I'm going to scroll down until I see my score system divider. And it's a bit of a scroll. There we go. So here we go under General System Divider. And I'm going to go ahead and click right there. And what that's saying is it's saying, hey, look, we're shifting the number of staves here for this system. Okay, this is a system. This is a system. So, fully notated version. We can borrow a lot of the elements from up above. This is an extra that I don't need. Okay, so now we've got some left-hand stuff that's new to us. You can enter this in real time. For now, I'm just going to do it using a slower method. Get myself in the right octave here. And then, okay, tied into a half note. And then we've got eighth rest here. 2, 3, 4. I'm entering 2 notes at once here, right? Because I've got actual chords, or, well, we would call these dyads now because they're 2-note voicings. Dotted quarter note, followed by an eighth note anticipation that does this. Okay? Yeah, Sibelius added an F natural there, just to clarify, and that's fine. That's actually a good thing. All right, so the left hand is finished. Now we just need to add to the top stuff, and you know what? We don't need these little top note voicing lines anymore. So I'm just gonna, I could filter to get rid of them, and I'm just gonna kind of grab them like this. Tell you what, I'm gonna show you this filter for the last couple. So we can also do this using filters. So I'm gonna remove these lines using filters, holding shift, making that selection. Advanced, and again we're in the home tab right now. I need to hide my on-screen cam, and then we are going to find not notes and chords but symbols, and we want to find all symbols. That's going to be fastest, and just hit select. You can see that those symbols are highlighted, and I just hit delete and they're gone. So that's probably the fastest way of doing that, since they're tricky little buggers. So we need to finish the voicings in the treble clef here. So to enter a pitch that's a third lower, okay, the F is a third lower than the say flat, I can hold shift and type 3. And for a fourth lower now, I need my C, shift, type 4. All right, moving to the next voicing, we need an E, so shift 3, and then shift 4 for that B natural. It's the same thing here, shift 3, shift 4. And then we've got a different voicing here altogether. We actually need this to be a G flat. So I could type the letter G, resolve the octave, make that pitch flat. This is one of those cases, since we're dealing with accidentals, that it's probably actually faster for us to enter this using the MIDI keyboard. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm now going to enter the 3 notes on my MIDI keypad. Okay, so my rhythmic value is set, and now I've got my notes as needed there. And then here, we've got a B flat and a C. So I could go like this. I could do one of 2 things. So probably going to be easier for me to select this pitch and do that, okay? And then like so. All right, and the last voicing is easy because there's no accidentals to worry about. So I can just go shift 3 and then a fourth below that, shift 3, shift 4, like so. All right, well, I hope that's helpful. We covered a lot here, so I think it's a really great introduction and way for you to experiment a little bit too with the workflows that will be best for you in Sibelius. It's a powerful program.